Well, good afternoon, everyone. I want to call this Finance Committee hearing to order. We're here this afternoon to review the City of Columbus's utilization of federal COVID funds. This includes CARES dollars, ERA, or Emergency Rental Assistance funds, and the American Rescue Plan dollars. I want to recognize fellow elected officials that are here tonight. We are honored to be joined virtually by our Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, who you'll hear from shortly, from our President Pro Tem, Rob Dorans, from Councilmember Shayla Favor, who is with us virtually, and Councilmember Emmanuel Remy. We also have members of the Mayor's Administration, Director Mike Stevens from the Department of Development, Director Carla Williams Scott from the Department of Neighborhoods, and Director Benita Reese from the Recreation and Parks Department. I also want to thank so many community leaders that we have with us tonight. From representatives from the Community Shelter Board to Mike Corey from the Human Service Chamber. It's good to see your friend. As well as Carly Booth from the Affordable Housing Alliance and many other friends in the audience tonight who have truly been doing the work, And a big part of this hearing is to slow down, to pause, to recognize and reflect on this once-in-a-lifetime infusion of resources that has come into our community. To retell the stories of the individuals whose lives have been impacted by these federal funds that have been in our community over these last 2 years, and to help us plan for how we move forward. Last week, we convened the Finance Committee for the first part of this series on federal COVID grants. We reviewed the various funding sources, their respective uses, and how funding has been used to date. To that end, the City of Columbus has received over $500 million in federal relief funds to date, and we've invested over 2/3 of those funds to mitigate the effects of the pandemic and speed the pace of recovery. So there is around $70.5 million left in ARPA funds with an obligation deadline of December 2024. There is $67.8 million in emergency rental assistance fund dedicated to housing, rental, and utility assistance. And we have a little over $16.4 million in home ARP funds, which is focused on affordable housing, homeless services, and homelessness prevention. We also heard stories from the community, from the Mid-Ohio Food Collective CEO, Matt Habash, who gave a testimony that stuck with me. He talked about how the need for the food that they are seeing is now even greater than it was at the height of the pandemic. He also rightfully thanked our representatives in Washington, in particular Congresswoman Beatty, Senator Sherrod Brown, who stepped up to provide critical aid when COVID shut down our economy. But he also talked about the representatives who blocked the extension of the child tax credit, a measure which cut child poverty in half. I know Congresswoman Beatty and Senator Sherrod Brown fought hard to keep Ohio's kids out of poverty. And I mention this because it shows what our country can do if we commit to big and bold ideas. Here in Columbus, we have an opportunity. And that opportunity is to use these one-time grants to change lives in a meaningful way. And tonight, we'll specifically focus on human services and youth programming that has been supported by federal COVID dollars. First, we'll hear from Director Mike Stevens about the Recovery and Resiliency Advisory Committee. Then Mike Corey from the Human Service Chamber will provide remarks. Third, the administration will provide an overview of youth programming, particularly summer programming. And Director William Scott and Reese will lead that presentation. And finally, we'll hear testimony from our community organizations. But we want to start tonight hearing from our Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, who will provide opening remarks. We thought it was really important to, as we again slow down, pause, and reflect on how we got here, to bring in the person who cast one of those the important votes to make sure that nearly $500 million made their way to our community so that we could make it through, hopefully, the once-in-a-lifetime event that we went through with the pandemic. We are very grateful for her work, and as you will hear through the rest of this evening, we just got to remember that would not have happened without the support of our federal partners and our advocates in D.C. With that, I'll turn it over to our Congresswoman Joyce Beatty.
Well, first of all, let me just say thank you, Council President Hardin, and all of the council members in the audience there. First, for that introduction and for inviting me to speak at this Finance Committee hearing to discuss the federal grants issued by the COVID-19 pandemic and how they have benefited our community. It was an honor and a pleasure for me to step up and to be engaged, and that's because of all of the leadership that you all provide. And certainly, as we know, when our nation was hit with this unprecedented public health crisis, Democrats in Congress acted swiftly, leading the charge to ensure that American workers, families, small businesses, and the healthcare system had the resources they needed to weather the storm. And a storm it was. Just as you mentioned, Council President Hardin, we passed a $2.2 trillion package with the CARES Act in March of 2020, of which $157 million went to the city of Columbus, my district, the largest financial assistance package in the history of this country, Columbus, Ohio. Under the leadership of Mayor Andy Ginther and City Council President Shannon Hardin, the funds were divided up and allocated accordingly to meet the best needs of Columbus residents. Millions of dollars went towards directing spending on COVID-19 expenses, such as COVID testing, emergency medical services, and personal protective equipment, or PPE. Several millions of dollars went towards human services, including rental assistance and shelter for those experiencing homelessness. And we know what has happened in our community with the increased number of people who are homeless and all of the issues we've had with affordable housing. The funds were channeled to address economic impact, going towards small business assistance and technology to make sure that we were able to enable employees and students to work remotely. A year later, in the face of a continued economic and health crisis, Congress acted again by passing, at that time, it was $1.9 trillion in a package through the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, which you have referenced, of which the city of Columbus, and here you go, I really want you to hear this, was allocated roughly $187 million over a 2-year period. You don't know what an honor it was for me to be able to push for that, being the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus at that time, being in the room as a leader. I always thought about, let's make sure that I take care of home. These federal dollars were intended to support a strong public health response to accelerate economic recovery in the face of this pandemic. ARPA funds have helped essential workers, teachers, nurses, police officers, grocery store workers, and so many others, as well as frontline health workers, to get the extra boost that they needed to survive the worst of the crises. As a former small business owner, I know what a small boost can do to keep the doors open, to be able to feed families. And further, the Emergency Rental Assistance Program provided a combined total of over $46 billion in emergency rental assistance and housing stability services. These landmark COVID relief packages were spearheaded by Democrats in Congress to ensure that our communities had the medical resources needed to respond to, yes, a global health crisis. Also to protect hardworking families from evictions and foreclosures, and it helped small businesses keep their doors open. I am incredibly proud of the results that my colleagues and I achieved for our district. By allocating this money at the federal level is only the first step. I am immensely grateful for the local leadership that was on the ground right here in Columbus, Ohio, that took these federal dollars and put them to use to serve our community, the students in our schools, our frontline and essential workers, again, our small businesses right here at home, and so many more. It is an honor for me to be here tonight, and it is more of an honor to be recognized by you, President Hardin, because in so many communities, there's never enough attention to the federal government and what we're doing. And so here's a commitment I make to you tonight. I will continue to fight for the 3rd Congressional District. I will continue to fight to make Columbus all the more stronger as we continue on this journey. And thank you again for inviting me to speak at this committee meeting on this very important topic. And thank you all for your continued work in serving the city of Columbus. And you know, I couldn't end this because if I were there in the chambers, I would stand up and I would say, I'm Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, and I approve this message. Thank you so much. I look forward to continuing to work with you all.
Well, thank you so much, Congresswoman. You are no stranger to hearings, but usually they are in D.C. But you also are no stranger to these council chambers. And just hearing you today reminded us of how you brought words for our African American history celebration. But I just want to give another thank you. So often when federal funds come to communities, they have to go through states first. And one of the things that we are so grateful for on the local level is that these dollars went directly to cities. And why that is important, Congresswoman might not be able to see this, but in our chamber today, we probably have 40 folks representing so many community agencies. It's the proximity that cities have to those agencies and those agencies' proximity to the people that we were able to use those $500 million that Congresswoman Beatty and Senator Brown sent to us to get directly to people. And so again, we're just very, very grateful for the leadership of Congresswoman Beatty and all those in DC who made these federal funds available to us, and to all those folks in the audience who actually did the work of connecting those to the people. So thank you again, Congresswoman, for joining us. Are there any comments from my colleagues before we get into presentations? Seeing none, with that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Director Stevens. Director, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Hardin, members of council. It's great to be back here this evening to continue our discussion around the federal funds we received. Tonight, I'm going to try to briefly highlight the work of the Recovery and Resiliency Advisory Committee. This group was a group that was put together in October of 2020 really to focus on what answers we have to the questions around how will Columbus emerge from the pandemic as a stronger city. And the group met on a regular basis and received briefings on how the pandemic was impacting housing, our economic base, food security, job readiness, digital inclusion, the travel and tourism industry, the development industry. So what I'm sharing with you now is a list of those members of the advisory committee who served and met during the pretty much 8 months of coming together to work on some of the recommendations that I'm going to outline. Some of the people there are no longer in the roles as they're listed on the slide, but this was kind of a moment in time when this group came together to do the work on trying to figure out how do we need to address systems and investment going forward to make sure that we recovered, but not only to where we were before 2019, but how, as a city, economically, we could move forward and lift everyone up. The working group divided into 3 work groups the committee divided into 3 work groups to define issues and make recommendations. They focused on human services and economic recovery, and really they prioritized equity, access, stability, and advocacy. When we defined an equitable recovery strategy, we really grouped key issues into 3 areas. The first was the crisis, the immediate needs that we needed to address. Then we wanted to look at the short and midterm needs, as well as what does the future look like? What's that long-term investment needs? And we had really one work group per area on those three needs. And the recommendations grew out of a recognition that all three areas should be integrated and addressed simultaneously. Let me talk a little bit about some of the recommendations that the advisory committee came up with. First, around urgent needs, there were 15 recommendations. It was focused on housing, eviction reduction, housing stability, and then those basic needs around food security and personal care. How are we going to address the benefits cliff and the human services infrastructure? Housing and food security were the most critical needs that we needed to stabilize in our community during the crisis. And the pandemic really revealed the tenuous housing and food situation for many residents. We talked a lot about that last week when I know Matt Habash was here and the work that they did at the Mid-Ohio Food Collective, as well as the work that city, county, and our leaders. And as you said earlier, President Hardin, we have a group of leaders who are in the chambers with us tonight who did the work, who did the heavy lifting, and really made any success we had around getting emergency rental dollars out really was based on the work that they did. So I'm really glad they're here, and we're going to hear more from them tonight. So the critical needs during the pandemic, such as housing and human services, were not just a pandemic urgent need, but remain a critical priority area of community focus post-pandemic. So to reverse our region's current housing trajectory, I don't know why I try to use the big words, but bear with me. Mayor Ginther created and launched the Columbus Housing Strategy. Columbus and the region must build twice as much housing of all kinds, market rate, workforce, affordable. We must invest in additional affordable housing for families and individuals. We must preserve the existing affordability and protect residents from evictions and displacement. And we must include low-income residents and people of color by cultivating economically diverse neighborhoods. By connecting the Columbus Housing Strategy and the Recovery and Resiliency Report, the following recommendations are things that are in process. Recommendation number 1 under the critical needs was launch a regional housing coalition. We have done that. That work is being led by our Assistant Director of Housing Strategies, Aaron Prosser. There's a group convening that with public and private leadership, and really we're working throughout the region on our suburban partners and neighbors to how do we address housing. Number 2, the city has prioritized the development review of affordable housing projects. Recommendations 6 and 7 were around the ERA funding and working with our not-for-profit agencies in the community to help provide housing security and prevent evictions. So there's 36 of those partners that we've been working with. And recommendation 15 highlighted the importance of the human service sector and recommended adding an additional $5 million to the annual competitive human services funding. So in 2022, the city launched Elevate, which is a 3-year cycle of funding of $5 million annually to 48 grantees. The focus of the grant is to support organizational capacity for those organizations focused in the following areas: increased infant vitality, reduced unsheltered homelessness, and increased housing stability for immigrant and refugee households. In addition to the 3-year funding cycle of Elevate 1.0, the city launched Elevate 2.0 in 2023, which is the traditional $5 million of human service funding. So between Elevate 1 and 2, the city has doubled its commitment to the human service sector from $5 to $10 million annually. It's nice to be able to take a report out, look at some of the recommendations, and talk about what we've actually accomplished. The readiness around short and midterm stabilization and growth, this was really focused on digital inclusion, workforce, childcare, and higher education. So recommendation 23 really focused on childcare and working with those childcare providers. And City Council and the city funded signing bonuses, $500,000, so we could provide one-time signing bonuses of up to $1,000 to get the people we needed to provide the childcare services that were necessary. We did the Worthy Work PR campaign to also, which was recommendation number 26, which was to recruit more folks into our childcare work. And then there's $2.5 million for 250 scholarships for up to $10,000 for low-income families earning too much to qualify for subsidies, but not enough to justify going back into the workforce to cover that child care. So we provided that as well. And then around development, investing in long-term growth, we're really aimed to recommend the best ways to support sustained ongoing growth of the economic base and revenue generation ideas. So really community development around culture, tourism, and similar areas that's reliant upon a workforce that has enough disposable income to support the growing and thriving institutions. And the committee paid special attention to making these areas more equitable and accessible to all our residents. I rushed through that pretty quickly because there's a lot more people here that it's going to be better to hear from them, but I am happy to answer any questions that you might have.
No, thank you, Director. I do think it's important that we though start this hearing with a recap of the work of the Resiliency Recovery. Just as the mayor and I said last week when we started this series, it is our hope that that will guide also the direction in which we spend down and commit the remaining resources. That folks took a lot of time. We came together as a community. We came up with these guidelines and that we still believe are cogent to how we can recover as a community. And so hopefully, again, we're still continuing to push people to go read the report, to see themselves in the report, and use that as they shape and start to think about the continued work that we all have as a community. So I appreciate you going back through that with us. Are there any questions from my colleagues for Director Stevens? Thank you, Director Stevens. Next, we'll hear from Michael Corey, Executive Director of the Human Service Chamber. Welcome back to Council, sir.
Thank you, Council President Hardin. Council members, it's nice to be back. The last time I testified here, this suit fit me better. So forgive me for my discomfort while none of this fits here. I am really honored to be starting my 6th year at the Human Service Chamber, Franklin County. We now serve over 170 health and human services nonprofits in Columbus with 18,000 employees. A lot of them are here behind me, and they're going to make sure I don't mess up today. I have the important job of recapping our gratitude for the support of the City of Columbus, especially City Council, with CARES dollars, ARPA dollars, and others, as well as giving you a sense of how dollars might be needed for investment in the immediate future and the long-term future as well. I sent some slides at the very last second, as us, the nonprofit sector, want to do. I will go through them here, and if you'd like print copies, I can make sure you get them after the fact. I want to start with appreciation for March 2020 to today. And as we all know, this meeting is apropos timing-wise because the pandemic emergency is about to officially cease. Some of what was done was recapped by Representative Beatty and Director Stevens. Just an extraordinary amount of money that came into the community to meet that extraordinary surge of needs, especially in those initial months. But what's important is that the city wasn't obligated to allocate those dollars to nonprofits and through nonprofits. The city chose to do that. Not every city did. Not every county did. And that meant a lot. That was a lifeline for a lot of people and for a lot of agencies. And I want to make sure that is underscored today because we didn't see that everywhere else. And I'll tell you, if you look at any other sector, they aren't all still in operations because COVID sent a lot of folks out of business. In our membership, in our sector, not one agency closed its doors because of COVID. And one was close at the end of 2020. And one city council member said, I'm going to fix this, and found funds to keep that agency going, and now it's thriving again. So those funds, the allocation of $15 million in grant funds, the allocation of PPE, of masks, of soap, and so much more, all of that was an investment in the sector to keep people safe, to keep people served, and we will never, ever forget what the city did, especially in 2020. Obviously, the grants resumed with ARPA dollars in 2022, and the fact that those traditional grants kept flowing alongside a new investment of $5 million was extraordinarily valuable, and folks won't forget that, folks won't forget that either. There were also the pass-through dollars through nonprofits directly to people, and that all underscored what we thought was so important in investing in people, programs, and infrastructure. And you'll hear me say that many more times over the course of my remaining couple of minutes to speak with you today. And let me use that then as the appropriate pivot to where we're at now and where we're going. This is perhaps the hardest moment of the pandemic for a lot of organizations, in obviously very distinct ways from the first moments of the pandemic, because needs have spiked across the sector. When the pandemic began, it was in waves. It was on the food pantries, it was on the shelters, it was on childcare providers. Now, across the board, we're finding that the health and human services providers are slammed. And they have been busy. They were busy before the pandemic began. They have been much busier since. And I want to underscore that that surge of need is proving to be true across the sector. And it's harder now because the workforce isn't there in the same way that it was in 2020. So this workforce crisis, coupled with the surge of need, is creating a lot of anxiety for the immediate future, okay? And investments from the city and the county to support that need are going to be tremendously needed and tremendously appreciated to keep folks going. Let me also underscore why, beyond that, this immediate stretch and even the medium-term stretch is so important. We're navigating what's likely to be an inhospitable state budget and an unpredictable federal budget. We can't rely on the funding streams and the services that have come from the state and the feds the way that we once could. And these didn't used to be political footballs, but they have become that. And it's unfair that the burden is going to lie more heavily on the city and the county, but it likely will. And we've had a great partnership with the city and the county, and we're going to rely upon that to get through the next 2 years as these federal funds are exhausted, and for what comes next. And Representative Beatty used a really apt analogy talking about a storm. We talk about COVID like a hurricane. And the surge of needs was like a storm surge, and it has been beyond the shoreline since March of 2020. Usually when there's a hurricane and it ends, the shoreline goes back to where it was before. That isn't happening with this. It's been 38 months of a storm, and we don't know how long it's going to last. And now new factors are coming in between inflation, global warming having its disproportionate effect, and we appreciate all the work that the city is leading on that front. But with the funding cliff and all these other uncertainties, there is anxiety that we can meet the needs of the sector. And let me close with this. There is good news coming to this community too. There's tremendous growth happening here, with tremendous economic investments that are likely to bring a lot of new residents. That's great, but the speed of it is going to create a challenge for all of us. And we need to be ready for all of those good problems on top of the existing ones as they collide over the next decade with all the uncertainties that we have, but we know with certainty that the city will be there to support the sector. So we really appreciate the chance to speak with you today. I'm sure you'll hear a lot more specifics from my much smarter colleagues later today, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Corey, for your presentation, but certainly much more for the leadership that you provide in the advocacy on behalf of your member organizations. It has, there was no easy part to the pandemic, but the relation part of the work that we did certainly, I think, helped expedite resources to the community, and that was no small part due to you. You know, you talk about this hurricane that is coming, and if we just continue with that type of analogy, you know, we then saw that the resources was FEMA coming in. and we were able to mobilize and bring these resources to bear in the community after, as the storm came through. Part of the hearing is to help us, part of the reason we're doing these hearings is to help us articulate to the community and truthfully ourselves as a city how we will then spend down the remaining dollars with the understanding that those dollars have an end date. One of my creeping concerns is that we put so many resources out into the community, supported so many organizations that now need that as their base level.
Yeah.
And with the economic uncertainty that's coming, we don't know what our regular budget will mean for typical funding, let alone the absence thereof of these extraordinary one-time dollars. And so my question is, are there conversations, and I know that we started this a little bit last year with the Elevate grants, with how do we build capacity? How do we think about where do we go from here when these resources are not available? Even when we said $70 million left to give out, but from a city perspective, how should we really be using those dollars as we think about this thing has a definite end date?
Right.
And we're going to things will change, and how do we deal with that as a community? Are you guys thinking about that? Is that,
Yes. This is one of the things that keeps us up at night, frankly. But we know that there have been conversations, even since I started at the Chamber 6 years ago, of how do we drive more dollars into the health and human services sector, that originated with something called FRAC, the Funding Review Advisory Committee or Council, one of those words, back in 2010, 2011. It identified ways to fund the sectors, tourism, arts, nonprofits, and we think it'd be a great time to revisit that as soon as possible so that as these dollars expire, we have a plan so that we, even if we can't match the amount, of course, that's come out of the federal government the last 3 years, we can keep that level as high as it needs to be to meet that growing need. And here's the part that I think is valuable, and we have had wonderful conversations with you and a lot of your colleagues about this. Even if the percentage of people in need declines in the coming months and years, the number of people in need is only going to go up because we're growing so fast. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's what I don't think we're ready for yet, but we're having the conversations, we're ready to help mobilize however we need to pull dollars from the existing budget, to find dollars in other ways to keep the sector afloat. And it shouldn't fall just on one body. It shouldn't fall just on the city. Mm-hmm. Okay, it falls on all of us here in Franklin County, and quite frankly in Central Ohio, to figure this out together like we usually do. But we know too that there are folks in other bodies of government that want to make it harder to do that. And that's the unique challenge with all of this.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Corey? Principal Tim.
Thank you, Council President. So building on that point, I think when we were early on in the pandemic, one of the reasons that absolutely the city, the county, and others had to enter into these spaces with significant funding from the federal government was the philanthropic private dollars dried up immediately, right? When you have that kind of economic uncertainty, that's to be expected. And I think as we're starting to have these conversations about figuring out how to be more sustainable moving forward, what are the funding streams from the public side in order to, again, hopefully maintain some of the excellent capacity that's been built through your membership over these past 3 years. Just curious, from a holistic standpoint, sort of what is the view of that sort of private philanthropic dollars that are out there? Because we know those sort of went off a cliff very quickly back in 2020. I'm curious sort of where we're at sort of in 2023, and how much can your members sort of consistency, sort of expect some consistency on that side of things as we're trying to think through how we make sure that we provide some stability and consistency for folks. So we've asked to do a hell of a lot of things for the past 3 years. They've done it very well. I'm just thinking through how those things fit together.
Yeah, it's a great question, Counselor. So as you know, the largest foundation in town, the Columbus Foundation, immediately set up an emergency fund for COVID response. That was tremendously helpful. I think one of the unique elements for all of the philanthropic and corporate funders over the last year has kind of been waiting to see how dollars were going to be spent, what new challenges would emerge, where needs were going to arise. And I think they're still kind of in that wait and see mode because they know too that there are still unprecedented federal funds available, both from the city, the county, and the state of Ohio, and there are additional federal funds coming in because of the Infrastructure Act, the CHIPS Act, the IRA, and so forth. But I sense that they're eager to be at the table to navigate what the coming months would require. And again, my sense is that they're eager to be part of the community solutions, and we want them to be there too. We're not having this conversation just with our elected officials. I promise you that. We're bothering everybody.
It's a pleasure to be bothered. So, so building on that, my last question, I guess, and I think you have answered some of this, right? But when we think about sort of what comes next, you have you represent a organization that has a tremendous variety of folks that do a lot of different things and have improved upon those quite a bit in the past 3 years. I mean, the answer is money when I ask the question, like, what do your members need from us? Yeah. But I think beyond just sort of the dollar signs that, again, to support the work they're doing, to me anyways, it seems like some clarity on sort of what does this look like moving forward for them? Is that sort of beyond just the funding, is that like the biggest there essentially that folks sort of need as we think about what is the next 12, 14, 36 months looks like for folks in your membership?
Yeah, we could talk about that one for a long time. I think I would add a slight amendment to the funding. It's flexible funding. And the city has been very responsive to that. It's not just funding for programs, it's funding for operations, it's funding for capacity, it's funding for the HVAC that just broke, it's funding for making our building more energy efficient so that we can have a more resilient building but also save money in the long term and so forth. That piece is critical. But also having a policy partner, also having a rhetorical advocate out of the city. A lot of elements of our sector are under duress, under attack, whether the agencies themselves, the people they serve, and having bodies that are eager to stand with them and support them through legislation and through advocacy as well is extremely important. And there are also elements to this that nobody can quite solve. The workforce issue is not something that we can snap a finger and solve. We just don't have enough healthy people that want to be here to do the work. And that's true up and down the lines across the nonprofit sector here and across the country. It's a national challenge. We can't solve that together, but there are things that we can try, that we can innovate with and try and draw and keep people in the sector to meet that growing need. There are lots of other elements, I'm sure. We could talk about the need for physical spaces that nonprofits have and support from the city on finding the physical spaces to deliver the services across the county would be really interesting. Where people are in need has fanned out across the county. That was true over the last 10 years. It's become more true over the last 3. And we don't necessarily know where everybody is and the unique demographics and needs because it's hard to keep that data in real time too. So partnership with things like that. But I would defer to my bosses on other specifics, but I think those are some of the general areas. But the responsiveness, the attentiveness, the speed, the efficiency to be of support, I think that's the most important piece to all this.
Thank you, sir. Again, thank you for all your work, and we look forward to hearing from your bosses this afternoon about the tremendous work that they have done. But thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
Next up, we'll have Director Reese and Director William Scott, who will provide an overview of summer youth programming and how federal COVID dollars have helped to support that work over the last couple of years. Directors.
Good evening, Council President Hardin, members of City Council. Thank you for having me here, and I appreciate this opportunity this evening to share with you how the Department of Neighborhoods has utilized federal COVID relief funds to support our young people. We understand that the profound effect the pandemic has had on our youth, mental health, educational achievement, and overall opportunities for advancement have been greatly impacted. Through our summer youth programming over the last 3 years, we were able to assist in filling this gap. Since 2020, the department's My Brother's Keeper program has provided oversight for summer youth employment opportunities that have reached thousands of young people across Columbus. With the support of Mayor Ginther and Council, we expanded our resources, our investment opportunities for youth from $220,000 in 2020 to over $2.3 million in 2022. In 2020, we invested $220,000 in CARES Act funding to to support the work of 3 agencies and programs that impacted 70 area youth. And that was during the time where we really didn't have the opportunity to reach out to other agencies, as the pandemic had just happened in March. We declared a state of emergency, and then we were trying to work to ensure that young people had some opportunities in 2020. In 2021, our efforts expanded to more than $1.6 million in ARPA funds were invested in 6 agencies that served nearly 2,500 young people. I would also like to add that overall, as a city, we invested over $16.2 million in programming for young people in the summer of 2022. Our support of youth programming expanded again in 2022 through the department with $2.3 million in ARPA funds, assisting the work of 13 agencies. Additionally, another $2 million in funding was used for our youth and family engagement grants in 2022. 4 trusted community partners agreed to serve as a fiscal agent so that we could provide funding to some of our grassroots agencies who we know were in the community doing the work that needed to be done, but didn't quite have the capacity to handle the federal funding. We appreciate the support of those agencies. On the east side of Columbus, it was Afrocentric Personnel Development Shop. On the west side, the Franklinton Development Association. On the south side, Community Development for All People. And on the north side, the Community of Caring Development Foundation. All of the programs funded by the Department of Neighborhoods and MBK seek to expose our young people to careers of interest with a goal of creating a career-ready workforce. We labeled our program MBK Learn and Earn. This model has created paid opportunities and pathways for youth to gain and explore career interests. All funded programs work to help achieve one or more of the following outcomes: decrease the number of youth involved in violent incidents, improve work readiness skills, encourage young people to continue their education or seek employment, and provide academic enrichment for those that need it. Funded programs include the creation of the Future of Fashion, a program through the Columbus Fashion Alliance. Interns learned all aspects of the fashion industry, produced 2 capsule collections with items designed by the interns, and distributed more than 4,000 garments to the community free of charge. The Heart of Job Foundation offered programming that allowed participants to explore careers in media. Participants learned out-of-the-box thinking, research skills, and technology-based STEM learning. All students enrolled in our funded programs completed training in conflict resolution, self-awareness, and financial fitness. As these examples illustrate, these are unique programs that are successfully engaging our young people. In 2022, over 950 youth were actively engaged in funded programs, and the attendance rate and participating in these programs was 88%, and only 2 youth were involved in violent acts. We're excited for the opportunity to continue supporting our young people. The Department of Neighborhoods is participating in the competitive application process for programming that will serve our youth this summer. Exciting programs have been proposed that will help our young people learn new skills, succeed academically, and build their workforce readiness. Additionally, I just want to share that over the 3 years, and just to give you show you how we were able to increase the number of young people that were served with the support of the federal dollars. In 2020, we served 70 young people. In 2021, almost 2,500, and in 2022, a little under 4,000. And so those additional dollars really help to spread out and allow us to support more young people in our community. Moving forward, we look forward to coming back and sharing additional information about our community partners for this summer as soon as those partners are announced. Thank you for your time, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director. If it's all right, we'll just go ahead and roll into Director Reese, and then maybe check in with my colleague, Councilmember Favor, who reminded me she's online, and my colleagues here in the chamber. Director Reese.
Thank you, Council President Hardin, council members. Just to talk about a little bit about CRPD, and that is Columbus Recreation and Parks Department. As we went through the last few years, we realized that we needed support for our young people. And what did that mean for us within a department? We saw major youth activity within our parks. However, people couldn't really make it indoors to facilities. So as we talked about our federal funding, the CAR and CARES Act, and then the ARP Act, those were heavily programs that were funded and really gave us an opportunity to work with young people. We recognize that mental health, social and economic impacts on our young people that the pandemic had caused, and the city immediately focused on how to invest in our young people. One of the ways that we did that was through a teen impact program. That's our TIP program. We looked at 8 different centers within the community where we could really work with partners. And it was not just nonprofit partners, but it was also academic partners. It was also the Columbus school system on making sure that we were able to provide some resources for those young people. As we did that, we also looked at how do we fund those nonprofits to partner with us. Also, Columbus Police Department provided security at additional sites for us. We were able to work with the police department, and that is with our late night basketball program and then our Friday night lights. So those were all, not only some of the programs, but also sports programs that we did. We proposed to our partners that they pretty much provide existing off-site locations that could be utilized. What would this do? This would help reduce some of the youth violence that we were seeing within the city of Columbus. In 2021, we partnered with over 60 agencies. This is nonprofit agencies as well as public agencies to provide additional programming. Some of those programmings that was provided, it was everything from sports to personal development and academic enrichment, financial literacy, as well as social enrichment. Performing arts, we saw more technology programs coming out of working with individuals. We actually had an equestrian program to reduce the mental health, working with therapeutic individuals, because that was one area that we really saw that was really hit. Because of the therapeutic individuals didn't have anyone that really could and reach them during that time. We also initiated golf programs during this time. It was taking inner and urban city children and working with a golf program. We also worked with our Somalian population and created a soccer program that continuously grows now. They currently have over 8,000 young people working and playing soccer in that program. So these are just a few of the ways that we actually partner with them. When we think about how all of that came to really fruition for us, that was a total of $4.2 million that came from ARP dollars and CARES Act from 2021 to 2022 that was distributed over a 2-year period within the community to support nonprofits. I think as we look forward to collaborations and how we move forward with our community partners is to offer a wide range of opportunities for our young people to build their skills, to find their passions, make meaningful connections, and make sure that we are reaching them within the community. Thank you. I'll take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Director. Are there any questions from my colleagues in chamber or virtually? I would just say that it's important to remember the impacts that the pandemic had on our young people. Being out of school for so long, the inability to socialize with their peers. A lot of us were forced to stay home, but had space inside our homes, never had to worry about food. And we think about those who are already teetering on the edge. And you bring away all those other social constructs, the school, the church, the programming even that we had to pause. It's not surprising that that would have an impact in our community. And so those resources that we put forward to anti-violence work, specifically during the summer, are really important, and we got to continue to draw that line of connection back to that. Director, you have any?
Council President, I also wanted to share, and while I know we were focusing on summer youth program, we also used our CARES Act dollars to stand up, and this was during 2021, to stand up LECs, our Learning Extension Centers. And I think that's really important as well, because we also realized the challenge when a lot of students were sent home with a Chromebook, but they didn't have internet.
Right.
And so a lot of our community organizations, our churches and various organizations stepped up and said that they would open their doors so that we could provide those LECs where young people could have a safe place to log on, get a meal, and get some assistance with their schoolwork if they need it. And again, while it wasn't summer programming, it was something I think that helped our young people and also helped to keep them safe during the school year.
Councilman Remy.
Well, I want to thank both of you and for all the work that you've done over the last few years, but also I wanted to give the opportunity to talk. Last year we weren't able to open all our pools. This was a concern of this council, and of course you put together a really solid plan, I believe, this year. I'd like you to give the opportunity to shout that out, because I'm sure we're not filled with lifeguards, but certainly you've done everything in your power to make sure that it's very enticing to be a lifeguard with the City of Columbus.
I appreciate that, Council Member Remy. As we talk about our lifeguard program, first of all, as I sat at home on last evening watching Family Feud, which is a prime time of the evening, I happened to glance up and catch a commercial for lifeguards for our department, and it talked about the incentive plan of $500. It talked about the $20 per hour. And so today I was so excited, I ran over to our marketing team to just kind of share with them what I saw. And it was kind of with ease, almost as if we know. And so I was I was a little taken back, but very excited that we really look at our lifeguards and how we've done this. This is a national challenge, and not just a City of Columbus challenge, but it is a national-wide challenge. We talk as recreation professionals across the country. How much are you paying your lifeguards? What are you doing to recruit lifeguards? Our numbers are higher this year than they were last year. That really is a good sign for us. And so we are happy, excited about it. However, we still need lifeguards. And in as much as they're making $20 an hour and, $500 at the end of the season if they stay on, we're providing certification classes. We're doing Friday, Saturday, Sunday certification classes. So we're asking people if they are interested or if they know someone that can pass the certification. To come out and really join the team of lifeguarding. And so we do anticipate all of our pools being open. We're looking forward to it. We do have 2 pools that are currently closed due to rebuilds. One we know with anticipation will open up on time. The second one may be somewhat delayed. So we'll fall back soon with those dates.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was at Douglas on Friday. Looks like maybe July, end of June type opening. But man, is that something else? Dual water slides. It's kind of, the kids' pool, the diving pool. I mean, there's a lot going on there. And I was like, wow, this is impressive for the City of Columbus. So thank you for that work. And we appreciate, because the employment leads to the opportunity for so many more kids in our communities to have a place to cool off and to be part of, a group of kids getting together and having fun. And so this is so important throughout the city. And it was great that you took this challenge on. I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, directors. Next, we'll move on to our testimony from folks, like we said earlier, who did the work and who are doing the work. We have several speakers tonight, I think 17 in total. So if we could bear together and kind of keep our remarks just pointed, but don't rush through, because again, this is about telling the story and remembering what we did, and helping to instruct where we go from here. And so the first speakers to come before us, first will be Ms. Shannon Isom from the Community Shelter Board, followed by Ms. Isom will be Pastor Frederick Lamar, representing Reaching Higher Heights for Life, and following Pastor Lamar will be Mr. Matthew Goldstein coming before us. Thank you. Ms. Isom, welcome to council.
Thank you, President Hardin, as well as the other council people, for allowing us to testify today. I come before you, Shannon Isom, representing the Community Shelter Board, but more importantly, representing a community of nonprofits dedicated to the most marginalized populations. It is not lost that although we are talking about the dollars, what we're really talking about is the significant impact that it has on people's lives. And I'm going to talk about what these dollars did. Although I wasn't here, I know just based on the community in which has already embraced me, that not only that they had great impact, but I would ask that we would, instead of considering how to project those dollars, to ensure that they become continuous. From these dollars, this significant level of federal support, we say thank you. $24 million came to the Community Shelter Board, which helped us to plan, like many did, a systemic response to the pandemic, a comprehensive and a response that provided synergy between many partners. We opened shelters. We added well over 240 beds. We allowed us to do isolation and access to hand washing and masks and vaccines. We purchased COVID tests like many people. We purchased food. We ramped up prevention efforts, and we ramped up these prevention efforts for, again, some of the most vulnerable populations, women that were pregnant, women with children. We ramped up our rapid rehousing efforts to shorten the length of stay in our shelters and to help people find more stable housing. These programs continue to operate, and I would say now that they have to be supported. These surge fundings that you gave ended up touching 10,000 additional lives, 10,000 additional lives, beyond the 15,000 that we already touch. And although that is in a lot of ways a way in which we are grateful, it is in a lot of ways, wow, a lot of people that need to be touched in shelter. We thank you for your leadership. We thank you for your voice and your support. We thank you for sometimes, and I heard it this morning, making the tough decisions. We want you to know that when you put the good money in the right hands with the right people, we do good work. And I thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Ms. Isom. Kind of thinking about the question that President Pro Tem asked to Mr. Corey, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
Where do we go from here? We have very limited resources. We talked about $24 million that went to the shelter board. We don't have that much to give, again, out of the COVID relief dollars that we have left necessarily. But where do we go from here with the challenges that we face?
A big question. I think that what I'm really hyper-focused on are two big things. Is how do we make this a system that becomes best practice, where we are dedicated and maybe dedicated cohort by cohort, population by population of ending homelessness. And within that in that best practice, that we can also be a place where others come to find out how to do it right. And with that becomes resources, and with that, we sit at tables to do the ask. I believe also, secondly, which I'm dedicated to do, is these federal dollars that have come into this community, that I will work outside of the community to ensure that those federal dollars can continue to be spoken to and spoken for. So big question. I think we all have a part in that lane, but I will be dedicated to going outside this community and pulling dollars in, and then secondly, really trying to do a functional zero for homelessness per population. And then we'll keep standing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Online, our Councilmember Favor or council members, any other questions? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Isom. Welcome, President Lamar, or Pastor Lamar.
Council President and all the members of council, I brought some I brought some flyers up, so then when I'm doing reports, I often like to be visual, so then if I miss something, y'all got it there with you. On behalf of the staff and Southside volunteers, I want to thank our Congresswoman, Joyce Beatty, and the council president, and all the members of council, and everyone who made these funds available, because it helps us to expand what we already are committed to do. Let me say thank you to all those who committed to unquestionable giving of their time, talent, and treasures, investing in our youth and their families. As we often say, there's no side like the South Side. We have so many agencies on the South Side that are committed because we know that we can't do everything, but we all can do something, and we work together on the South Side. We do start to spin off from our summer camp, and those slides there are from our summer day camp, where last year we kind of upped our numbers. After COVID, we cut our numbers down to about like 20 or so, but then with those funds, we upped it to about 60. And with youth and their families. Then in the fall, after the summer camp is from June and July. As soon as kids get out of school, we know that parents need someplace to take them, so then we kind of, round them up, and we have about 60. We're gonna do about 60 or maybe 65 this year. And then after the summer camp of June and July, we split off into our fall camp, and our parenting program and whatnot. Our schedule for our summer camp is from 8 to 3 o'clock, and through that schedule, we serve them breakfast. We do trivial interaction games with them, prevention activities, and we do performing arts. Performing arts is dancing and drumming. And then we also have social emotional learning along with job readiness for those 14 and 15. Then we have lunch, outside activities, and then we have gardening, which deals with healthy eating, really trying to teach the young kids about healthy eating, because so often when you're dealing with this generation X, Y, and Z, they know fast foods. And fast foods is the #1 cause of obesity today. So we try to teach them how to grow, how it's fun about growing. And we have what is called, I don't know if many of you are aware of, aeroponic gardens. Aeroponic gardens, those gardens you have on the inside that you can do all year round. And then we also devote them to community service, let them know that you're part of the community. So then the community can see them cleaning up, the neighbors can see them cleaning up, their friends can see them cleaning up, and then they take ownership in what they're doing. And then last but not least, the main thing we do with them is teach them about strategic thinking, about the game of chess. Everyone who comes on with the summer camp have to know the game of chess and have to be challenged to beat the chess master. So with that, I appreciate everything that y'all do in helping us with this, and we're gonna continue. We can continue to do, we can't do everything, but we can do something. And instead of people always standing sideline criticizing about the crime and everything, the challenge is, okay, what are you gonna do to help us win this thing? So we all in this together. So I wanna say thank you for all that y'all do to help us on the South Side.
We
And
appreciate
if there's
you,
any
Pastor.
questions.
We appreciate you, Pastor. You've been doing this work for so long, without resources, even before federal dollars were here to support your work. So thank you. Any questions from my colleagues?
And I wanna give a shout out to this one right here.
Ms. Carla Williams-Scott.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care. Following Mr. Matt Goldstein with BESA, we'll have Joshua Jeshu with legal aid, and Dr. Johannes Christian with us as well. Welcome.
Good afternoon or evening. It's good to be with you, Council President Hardin, and your fellow council members here and virtually, as well as the directors behind me, and Michael Corey with Human Services Chamber, his team, and my colleagues. Michael mentioned that this moment is one of the hardest and most difficult post-pandemic, this moment. And in the 12 years I've been in the nonprofit sector, it's something I've been thinking about all day, that this is one of the hardest moments, but it's also one of the most hopeful for me because of these opportunities, because we all are working together to solve some really difficult challenges and problems that our community faces, that vulnerable community members face. And I just want to thank you for your dedication and your collaboration. BESA, we have two priorities primarily. One is, how do we get volunteers to where they are needed most? And the second is, can we help increase the capacity of nonprofits across the city of Columbus and across Central Ohio? Just to give you a quick example, the pastor just talked about community gardens. Last week, I was at a nonprofit, an early learning nonprofit on the Near East Side, and they have a community garden that produces 400 pounds of fruits and vegetables each year. It's a small plot of land, and those fruits and vegetables help educate the students. Those fruits and vegetables go home with the students, they go to the families, and they go to community members that don't typically have access to the fresh produce. I asked the CEO, what would this look like if there weren't volunteers? And the response was, we wouldn't have it. That there is no way that it would be cost prohibitive. There's no way our staff could take on the demands of the community garden. And we depend on the volunteers throughout the season to tend to the garden, to nurture the garden, to harvest the garden. Across this community, there are plots of land at community gardens, at diaper banks, at homeless shelters, senior facilities, where volunteers, thousands of volunteers are standing, where they are tending, where they are nurturing the land and the community members that need our support. And so I want to thank all of you for the council members, the Congresswoman, for your support of civic engagement and volunteerism in our community. During the pandemic, BESA got 14,000 people to the front line. Last year, with your investments in our organization, 12,000 people, 30,000 hours, millions of dollars of impact, 2,000 projects like that community garden and so many more were possible because of you guys. The last thing I want to say is, we talk a lot about the various crises that are happening right now. Volunteer rates were down between 2019 and 2022. The volunteer rate across the country dropped 8%. In Ohio, it was double digits. And so you think about the needs for volunteers in this community and the infrastructure that your investments made in BESA to allow us to get people to where they are needed most. Thank you. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Please, President Tim.
Matthew, speaking to that
Yes.
last point, are you seeing that change as we get to whatever the sort of newish normal is that we're in now, as the emergency designation of the pandemic is going to be rolling off here soon? Are you seeing those volunteer rates sort of increase in the way that businesses are operating? I know you all have worked with many folks in the corporate community to bring sort of their days of service to a lot of the projects that you all are involved with, and as people not being in the office and all those kinds of things affect that. I'm just curious if you could talk. I mean, you're probably the best person to speak to this, I think, here tonight from a sort of holistic perspective. I'm curious if you're seeing any changes as folks sort of transition sometimes back into the office, sometimes back more towards normal life. What you're seeing with people volunteering?
Yeah, it's a great question. The programs were decimated during the pandemic. Volunteer managers those positions were either eliminated or they were reallocated. And so you think about at the nonprofits, volunteer programs going away, which impacts the decline in volunteers. And then to your point, council member, corporate programs decimated. Yes, we are seeing these programs come back. I just read a study that there's a 50% increase in volunteer managers at nonprofits across the country. That's a good sign. That means that nonprofits are better positioned to take on volunteers, and then companies are rebuilding their programs. But we are, again, it's double-digit declines this past year, between 2019 and 2022, and so we have a lot of work ahead of us. I just shared with one of my colleagues real quick that something that makes me excited is not just that people are getting engaged, but they stay engaged. And so I just met somebody who works at one of the nonprofits, and she shared, I used to be in the medical field. I volunteered through BESA. I fell in love with the work, and now I work at a nonprofit. And so it's those types of opportunities that can help us increase the capacity of the sector and the work that we're doing to meet the need. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Next, we'll have Joshu Shushima with Legal Aid, followed by Dr. Johannes Christian with Mobile, followed by Makiva McIntosh for YWCA. Welcome.
All right, thank you, President Hardin, and council members, thank you for the invitation as well. My name is Joe Tsushima. I'm a managing attorney at the Legal Aid Society of Columbus with our housing practice group. We really want to thank the support that we have received during the pandemic. A lot of our representation of low-income clients and their families could not have been done without the support of the city, especially when it comes to the area of housing. As everyone knows, Columbus has been quite progressive. We have been seeing a lot of investments, a lot of expansions, but coupled with that expansion has been a lot of competition in the housing market, which has been exacerbated by already having a housing shortage. And the difficulty that we've been having with a lot of our clients is that they cannot compete with the influx of real estate investors, and this isn't something just for renters as well. This is something that homeowners are struggling with. And it's making it very difficult for low-income and middle-class families to find and maintain stable housing. So when the pandemic came around, it was really a catalyst for housing insecurities for an already vulnerable population. Over 20,800 evictions were filed in 2022, up from 18,600 evictions in 2019 before the pandemic had actually started. In the first quarter of this year alone, the evictions are up 20% from 2022, so it is not going away. The pandemic subsiding is fantastic, but in terms of the long-term impacts, we are still struggling with them today, which is why it is imperative that we continue the work that the city has been investing in our work at Legal Aid. I run a clinic called the Tenant Advocacy Project, also known as TAP, over at Franklin County Municipal Court. And TAP was really there to answer the city's call to prevent an eviction crisis. And I think it was because of the quick action of the city and my colleagues over at Legal Aid and this community agencies that came to eviction court to support tenants. It was thanks to those efforts and that community collaboration that we were able to really curb an eviction wave, is what was described back in 2020. Since the pandemic has started, TAP has aided thousands of Columbus families in eviction trials, maintaining their rights, making sure that they have affordable, safe housing, making sure that repairs are made when they're dealing with landlords that are not maintaining the properties properly, or parsing out different legal issues that may come to poor accounting by the landlords. In one case, we had a client and his wife. He was an independent contractor. He lost his work, and he ended up falling behind on the payments, and his landlord starts charging him $350 in late fees every month. And then the following month, he would be charged another $350 for not paying the late fee from the previous month. And this would escalate until finally he just broke, could not pay. And in the end, when Carl came to eviction court, we were able to pair him with an attorney and get those fees thrown out of court. It's that sort of work that is necessary for us to be able to provide attorneys at eviction court and continue maintaining the rights for the tenants, and making sure that they have their rights advocated for on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the work that you do. I would be surprised if we didn't have a question or comment from my colleague, Councilmember Faber. I know she's a huge advocate of the expanded support for legal aid. Councilmember Faber?
Good afternoon, everyone. I will say I've been trying, it's so hard to be on Zoom, and you all know that. You don't get any respect on Zoom. But I'm so appreciative to all of our nonprofit agencies that continue to show up every single day for our residents, continuing to fill in the gap where the city and the county is unable to provide support. And so I tell you all the time how incredibly grateful I am to each and every one of you for the work that you do, the work that your staff does to continue to provide the necessary support to our residents. But with that being said, as it relates to this specific subject, rest assured that this is an effort that City Council continues to remain committed to, so much so that we've already legislated dollars to continue the tenant advocacy program, that partnership with the Legal Aid Society of Columbus, and then also put funds aside to have a study that's going to be done to provide the analysis that further demonstrates the need to provide the legal right to defense as it relates to these matters. And so that work is incredibly important to continue the longevity of standing up such an initiative like this. We are so committed to this effort that a part of our City Council's housing announcement just last month also included an additional effort as we look proactively around how we are going to tackle the rental assistance crisis in Columbus after the federal dollars run out. And so we have talked about what a rental registry looks like in Columbus with the sole purpose of providing a funding stream to continue on with those efforts. So all of that to being said, that this is not the silver bullet that's going to end the crisis in Columbus, but it is a key effort in making a dent in the problem overall. So once again, thank you to all of our human service agencies that are present tonight in chambers. I apologize that I could not be there in person, but know that you've got an advocate, a fighter, as the chair of the Human Services Committee that will continue to advocate on your behalf when needed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Press Pro Tem.
Thank you for being here. I just wanted to, and I understand if you don't have the specific numbers in front of you right now, but from a ballpark perspective, I think it's really important for folks to understand how impressive TAP has actually been with sort of the full staffing they've been able to provide. So the amount of evictions that get filed every year, and we've seen a record number of them, right? But the amount of actually set-outs that have occurred because of the work of the TAP clinic to help make sure that there's informal settlements and all kinds of things to make sure that folks don't have that eviction on their record. Because we know what happens once they have that, it becomes a scarlet letter for them, for lack of a better term, in order for them to have additional housing. So could you just sort of, again, if you don't have those numbers in front of you, that's fine, but we're talking about a small percentage as compared to the overall amount of evictions that have been filed. And I think TAP has a lot to do with that. Folks that have been working with this clinic have been able to find ways to avoid, again, that scarlet letter getting assigned to somebody, which makes their housing stability even more difficult moving forward.
Yeah, I wish I had those numbers in front of me right now because, and as much as I would like to attribute all the offset of the setouts to TAP alone, I know there's been a lot of community efforts to come up with creative solutions to make sure that in those really dire circumstances where there is an impending setout, that there are resources that are expedited to make sure that we can either relocate a family or get them the rental assistance they need to satisfy any debts they have with the landlord. I will say it's a very complicated matter at the same time. It hasn't been until recently there's been a lot of attention gathering data around evictions or housing, so it's really difficult to measure what the impacts of different sort of policies or TAP or other matters. All we're really able to do is kind of measure internally what our capacity is. So, for example, we'll have numbers on the impacts of the settlement agreements that we have and how much money that tenants are able to save. So, for example, August 2021, on average, represented tenants were saving at least $463 per settlement agreement with a payment plan. And if you were to extrapolate that on, say, even just half the evictions filed last year, 10,000, we're talking about potentially up to $4 million. So, is that realistic, how that would actually work? We don't know, but I think it really does come to question if there is more that we could be looking into to try to create a better system in the eviction framework and sort of how landlord and tenant relationships are managed in Columbus to make sure that both tenants' rights are being enforced, and then making sure that there are good ways of kind of strengthening those relationships at the same time so that we can focus on building more and better affordable housing in Columbus as we continue to grow. All right, thank you.
Next, we'll have Pastor Johannes Christian, followed by Makiva McIntosh, followed by Carly Booz. Welcome back to council.
Just speak. President Hardin and to other members of the committee, I thank you for this opportunity to stand and to represent Mobile Center for Independent Living. The philosophy at Mobile is that we're there so that people with disabilities are able to live a better quality of life and to do it independently in places where they desire to live. I want to thank you for your support throughout the whole COVID pandemic. Mobile received $200,000 from the federal government for the COVID, as well as money from Franklin County and the city, $85,000 and then $65,000. Those are not great big numbers, but they meant a lot to a small agency like ours. With your dollars, we were able to service people that were in the verge of being homeless. So we did a lot of rental assistance. We did food as well as utilities to make sure that our consumers were covered as best that we could. We worked in coordination. We worked with other agencies such as Impact, as the Breathing Association, and Legal Aids. And I'm so familiar with their work because many of our consumers are on Social Security and other benefits. It doesn't take much for them to fall behind. And so many of our consumers that we worked with or that contacted our agency were in the eviction category. And a lot of them were facing those same kinds of situations where they had exorbitant amount of monies that were added on simply because they were either late or couldn't pay their bills. A couple of things that I believe going forward that I would hope that the council would consider. We were able to take care of over 3,000 people during the pandemic simply because of the funds that we received. Under a normal budget for our federally funded SEAL, we only get $200,000 a year, which doesn't allow for us to do very much for individuals on a personal basis. Most of our time had been spent doing information and referral. And so we are constantly in contact with many other agencies in the city, trying to make sure that our individual consumers are able to get the help that they need. One of the questions that I continue to hear you ask President Hardin is, where do we go from here? My concern for an agency like Mobile is that perhaps with some of the dollars that we have left, as an agency that is a nonprofit, we lack funds for stability in terms of new computers, in terms of new office equipment. Much of what we have has been used and badly abused, but we continue to do what we can. And so I'm hoping that there might be some one-time dollars that might help small agencies to be able to bring their staff's equipment up to a level that they can be proud of. When we talk about infrastructure, some of the things that I think my consumers are concerned with are drinking water that is is okay to drink. A lot of them have concerns because we've heard about so many other cities and that have had problems with their water. And I've had people point out to me that they're not able to buy bottled water like some and drink only bottled water. So that's a concern for some of my consumers. The other concern that they have is affordable housing. No matter what we do, we understand that Columbus already has a housing problem. But just today, I worked with a man who is on Social Security with a son who's a DD, 37 years old. And he's already been to eviction court because he couldn't keep up the payment for his trailer lot. He's faced now with a $20,000 balance on his trailer and has been evicted off of his lot. Trying to find help for him today was a real challenge, both to find rooms for them to stay in while they try to figure out what to do with their house. This is a kind of problem that I see all the time with my consumers. We get 80% of our calls are trying to find places to live because they've been evicted. I'm grateful for our partnership with other agencies that help folk with rental assistance. It was a great help for us to be able to work with the city and the county to do rental assistance during COVID. And we would look forward to being able to do that should the funds be there for us to use. President Hardin, in a closing note, I want to say to you that it's been my pleasure to work with your office and with the mayor's office over the last 7 years as the executive director of Mobile Center for Independent Living. This is probably going to be my last time to be able to talk to you in this kind of arena. I will be retiring from Mobile on the 18th of this month, and will be relocating most of my retirement time outside of the city of Columbus. But it's truly been a pleasure. I pray that our agency will continue to have the same relationship with you as Ms. Yolanda Bolden acts as our interim director and under the presidency of our president for our board, Mr. Michael Thomas, who's with me tonight. Thank you again for this time, and I hope that something that I've said will help us move ahead in the future. I don't know if there are any other questions that I might answer.
Just want to say thank you. I got word of your upcoming retirement, and on behalf of a grateful city, thank you so much for the decades of work that you have done. Some folks have truly earned their next, and I hope that, and you are one of those folks who have earned your next, your rest, and whatever you choose to do next. But thank you so much for your work, and on behalf of our council, we were proud to partner with you through this pandemic, to have friends that we know we could count on that could do the work, and you did that. So thank you, sir.
Well, thank you for trusting us. I think when I came to Mobile, our name wasn't very big. And I didn't know that we would measure up to being able to work with the city. But I'm so glad that you gave us the opportunity, and I'm so glad we were able to come through.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Next speaker to come before council is Makiva McIntosh from the YWCA, followed by Carly Booth from the Affordable Housing Alliance of Central Ohio, followed by Sonia Thessing from Huckleberry House.
Good evening. Thank you to the City Council for allowing us to have this time to provide the opportunity to speak on the importance of the impact of federal dollars and dollar allocations on our organization. For over 130 years, YWCA Columbus has embraced the needs of the most vulnerable members of our community. We've done so with dignity while working to divide the status quo that puts those folks on unequal footing. As an organization, we fight for those we serve, and we serve those for whom we fight. We were the first organization to stand up for unhoused families in this community and with the creation of our Family Center. Since that time, we've been a collaborative part of the community shelter conversation and have maintained deliberate focus on systemic issues that create poverty while serving families with dignity. Today, I want to share why renewed investment from the city is imperative to our ability to continue to fulfill our mission, and to meet the needs of unhoused families here. When COVID hit in 2020, our business model was turned completely upside down. The closure of our child care facilities, which had historically been revenue generating, suddenly created a $1 million shortfall in our budget, and it will likely continue for the foreseeable future. Without the city stepping in, we would not have been able to keep the doors of our family center open. We are grateful for the ARPA funds that allowed us to meet the needs of unhoused families, and we were able to achieve the following with your investment. We made capital enhancements to maintain safety for our residents and our staff. We installed Wi-Fi throughout the shelter and hired tutors to allow children to maintain their academic work while schools were closed. We avoided layoffs, especially those within the child care sector, and enabled us to continue to provide continuous uninterrupted services to our residents in dire times. For the past 4 years, we received $266,000 per year from Health and Human Services funds through the City of Columbus to balance the budget on our child care operations for our homeless children at the Family Center. This funding is being discontinued, and we hope that ARPA funding can assist to cover this shortfall in the near future. Most importantly, city leaders approved emergency ARPA funds of nearly $2 million annually for each of the prior 2 years to close our operating gap, which is a result of the increasing cost of sheltering families and then the simultaneous flat funding from public dollars. Without this support, we could not have survived this budget shortfall in recent years. YWCA Columbus's ability to serve unhoused families, house women, provide child care, and initiate systemic social change through our social justice programs relies on this value partnership with the city. We are committed to the fulfillment of our mission and serving families with dignity, and are grateful for this opportunity to partner with the city on these efforts. I am happy to answer any questions you have, but I will remind you, I've been in my role for 5 weeks.
Thank you so much, Ms. McKeeva. Are there any questions from my colleagues? Just thank you for the work that you do. The YWCA was a steadfast partner. Your past president, Christy Angel, led the Recovery and Resiliency Task Force. And so we see you guys as integral to where we go from here. A lot of the challenges that we're talking about, hearing about, is the ongoing impacts that this pandemic has had in furthering poverty in our community and our collective responsibility to respond to that. So we look forward to continued partnership.
Great. We truly appreciate your partnership and are looking forward to that continued work as well. Thank you so much.
Next speaker to come for council is Carly Booth from the Affordable Housing Alliance, Sonia Thessing from Huckleberry House, and Brandon Hill from NCJC Housing and Development Foundation. Carly, welcome back to council.
Good evening, gentlemen. Hello, Council President Hardin, members of council. On behalf of the Affordable Housing Alliance of Central Ohio, I wish to thank and recognize the city for their exceptional operation of the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, which protected tens of thousands of our renters from evictions, as well as the landlords that serve them. During the height of the pandemic, this effort saved lives. As that crisis shifted from a health emergency to an economic emergency, your continued excellence in this arena saved families, it saved workers, it saved children from a multitude of harms that we know stem from evictions, which include job loss, illness, school disruptions, and far too often homelessness. Together with Mayor Ginther and the county commissioners, we are proud of your leadership of this nationally recognized program and that it earned additional funding that will help sustain us for another 2 years. We are similarly thankful for Housing Chair Favors' leadership in proposing a pay-to-stay law, which will end preventable evictions, in which the tenant is able to cure their delinquency and make the landlord whole, which is an essential element of an efficient and fair system. The inherently short-term nature of the rent assistance program is a perfect complement to the permanent solutions that the local fiscal recovery fund offers to rebalance the supply and demand scales that are the underlying cause of our affordable housing challenge. If conducted with the same urgency and creativity that has hallmarked the ERA program, the local fiscal recovery funds could create a sustainable and equitable bridge to our future while leveraging considerable resources from outside our borders. As housing experts, the Alliance's members often counsel their clients that a healthy housing payment is 30% of their income. That reflects a sustainable investment in one's future. Our members unanimously support applying that same principle to the local fiscal recovery funds and committing 1/3 of these resources to a diverse array of housing interventions. The intensity of Columbus's housing need combined with the flexibility of these funds is likely what led the Recovery and Resiliency Report to come to the same conclusion, in which their first 7 recommendations were all regarding affordable housing. A housing response is a durable and self-sustaining response, and one that leaves us better prepared for what lies ahead. We can build affordable homeownership opportunities in Northland and Linden. We can create mixed income and mixed use corridors in in Hilltop and in the Mideast communities. And we can support critical home repairs for long-term owners in Bronzeville and Vassar Village and all throughout our city, among many, many, many other ideas. Moreover, sufficiently building our affordable housing infrastructure expands the impact of workforce development programming, integrates digital connectivity resources throughout our community, and enables an environment in which small businesses thrive. And by investing these resources through local partners and local nonprofits, we ensure those dollars continue to recirculate and recycle throughout our community in perpetuity. On behalf of our 29 members and all of the community organizations we serve, I want to thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Carley. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Carly, your advocacy, too, has been invaluable over the last couple of years, and your voice and the work that the Alliance does, we just say thank you, and look forward to moving forward in this space. We have a lot of work to do. We've done a lot, but we have a lot more to do, so thank you.
Thank you.
So, next up is Ms. Sonia with Huckleberry House, followed by Brandon Hill with NCJC, followed by Sarah Jane Stevens from National Church Residencies. Welcome.
Thank you, Council President Hardin and members Remy and Favor. Good afternoon. My name is Sonia Thiesing, and I am the Executive Director of Huckleberry House. For over 50 years, we have served at-risk and homeless youth ages 12 to 24. Our mission is, with hope, we shelter, support, and guide youth navigating challenges. In the first 5 months of the pandemic, we moved 55 young people into our apartment complex in Linden and began serving 40 more young people at Marshbrook Place, the first permanent supportive housing building for youth in our region. But what kept me awake at night, and the one concern that permeated every decision I made in 2020 was, would we be able to keep the doors of our teen crisis shelter open for 12 to 17-year-olds who needed a safe place to sleep? If our doors closed, where would an unaccompanied teenager seek shelter? We made heartbreaking decisions to reduce costs and stay safe. We limited the number of youth we could shelter, set up sick beds in our admin building, and took on extra sanitizing efforts. Every decision seemed to cost us more money or cause us to lose money. By the time we requested CARES funding, we had experienced lost revenue and higher or new expenses that could have closed our doors. That funding kept our doors open. We are thankful to the City of Columbus for this important support. We were thankful again when the ARPA Neighborhoods Initiative addressed shifting needs in the shelter and helped us reach teens when they were physically distanced from the places where they normally learned about Huckleberry House, such as schools, libraries, and rec centers. Finally, the Elevate 1.0 grant provided unrestricted operating dollars. We began recalibrating the compensation of our staff, and we still have a long way to go to make up for decades of low compensation due to flat funding. But Elevate has given us room to start improving so that we can attract and retain the high-quality staff to serve our community's youth. To illustrate the importance of this funding, I have a quick story to share. Megan was 16 years old when she spent a week in our teen shelter and participated in family counseling. She was able to return home with communication skills that she and her parents needed. She was at home until she graduated from high school, and with encouragement from Huck House workers, decided to attend college. That was about 15 years ago. Currently, Megan is a medical social worker at Nationwide Children's Hospital, and this weekend she will receive her Master of Social Work degree. Huckleberry House has 1,239 stories from 2022. We provided nearly 36,000 nights of shelter and nearly 11,000 hours of mental health and life skills interventions in 2022. As the city plans to allocate remaining ARPA funds, I ask council to remember not only youth like Megan, who are now thriving in our community because of Huckleberry House and the human services sector, but also the estimated 3,000 young people in our city who need to be connected to services like those Huckleberry House provides. There is more for us to do, harder work for us to do, to achieve our vision of thriving youth no matter their journey. Huckleberry House serves as a safety net for youth. With your support, we can lift that safety net so that youth do not have to fall so far. We also have to strengthen the safety net. Huck House is seeing an increased need for shelter, housing, and support. The current youth system waitlist for housing, which is the work of our youth outreach program, is 57 youth, and we know the average wait for housing is 179 days, nearly 6 months of living outside waiting for a home. The recommendations that came from the Recovery and Resiliency Advocacy Committee are aimed directly at the problems our youth are facing, from housing and workforce development to digital equity. Huckleberry House sees those needs every day through the eyes of the youth we serve. As I always do, I will argue that solving these problems while people are still young creates a stronger community where all of us thrive. Huckleberry House was a founding member of the Human Service Chamber, and what's clear from the information the Chamber has been collecting is that we all need your continued support to serve our community. As a sector, we are only as strong as our partners, and we can only celebrate when we all are able to serve humans at our full potential. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Thiesing. Are there any questions or comments from our colleagues?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Brandon Hill from NCJC, followed by Sarah Jane Stevens from National Church Residency, followed by Ms. Charlita Tavares from Primary One.
Good evening, Council President Hardin, council members here in the chamber and online. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here today. I did provide in advance a PDF document, and I do have a couple of copies here in front of me if you all would need some, but I'll be speaking off of that today. First of all, I want to say it's rather appropriate that the analogy of a hurricane or a storm has been used throughout the evening today. Prior to coming on board with the foundation, I served for 10 years as a coastal resiliency manager for the state of Texas. And there I saw time and time again storms ravish a community. And the hardest part is always once the cameras are turned off and all the vans have gone home, and who are left are the residents and the people who are trying to serve them. And I think that that's what we face today is the cameras are beginning to turn off, the warning lights are beginning to shut down, and yet the hardest work is still ahead of us. So I applaud you all, I applaud the mayor, I applaud every single person behind me who is putting in the hard work to continue to serve those who need it most. The NCJC Housing and Development Foundation formed from the North Columbus JCs who have been providing affordable housing for the folks in Ohio for over 50 years. We are made up of a very small staff of 2 and a small board of directors who dedicate their time for free to run the foundation. We exist so that we can touch the lives of those who need it most. One of our founding tenets is that service to humanity is the best work of life, and that's something that we truly believe in. We actually partner with an organization known as Helping Hands of Central Ohio, a small food kitchen that we rent a unit to for $1 a year, who has been able, as of opening earlier this year, to serve up to 80 families a week since opening their doors. They're handing out thousands of meals a month, and that's just a small way that they've been able to help, and we've been able to help them through providing that space. When you look at where we've come from and where we're looking to go, it's a story of the JCs stepping up to the need of providing affordable housing to seniors. In 1971, the JC Arms opened up in downtown Columbus, which provides 223 units of housing. In 1980, the JC Village opened up, which provides another 101 units of affordable housing. Since then, we've provided nearly that much again as the foundation in our various facilities throughout Ohio, including some that we are hoping to provide here very soon, and I'll touch on those shortly. One of the most important things that we do is actually our townhomes, which only make up a very small percentage. There's about a half dozen properties themselves, which equate to around 14 actual units of housing. Those townhomes, though, fill a very specific gap. As you know, if you're under 30% of the average median income, there's many different options for you. If you make 90% of AMI, you typically can afford housing, but that middle gap is oftentimes most in need and unaided. And those are the folks who we're able to provide for with our townhomes. Those folks actually get help getting affordable rent without any subsidies, just based off of the way that we're able to run those properties. Specifically, and I apologize for going over time, specifically what I'm here to talk to you most about today is our downtown campus expansion. This is taking place right in front of the JC Arms and will represent 120 units of affordable housing. We have already received funding through the county, Franklin County, as well as the city and OFA. However, we, like many others, are facing a massive shortfall in the amount of money that we initially raised to support this project and what we are now projecting it's going to cost. Due to that shortfall, the first things to be cut are things that really are the heart of a project. The amenities, the classrooms. If it's not an actual unit of housing, it's really on the table, and that's just an unfortunate reality of dealing with architects. We are coming to you today because we truly believe that if with your continued support, we can not only continue to move this project forward, but move it forward in the spirit that it was initially provided. These amenities include classrooms for learning spaces, for workplace readiness. They include a full deck that rather than putting some sort of exclusive restaurant or bar on, we're actually setting aside as a community space because we believe that this can be a town square for the multi-generational campus that we're creating to gather. We're going to have grandma and grandpa stay in the JC Arms. We're going to have this campus edition as multifamily. And then the third phase of this project is actually an educational center that's going to focus on the trades, because ultimately what we believe in is not just putting roofs over heads, but foundations under feet. And if we're not preparing people to go out and work their way out of affordable housing, then we are failing them. So that's what I'm asking for your support here today, and we thank you so much for all the work that you're doing to do that. I'll answer any questions that you all have.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Any questions from my colleagues? I look forward to learning more about the project and about the issues that you're facing. To your point, though, so many of our partners are facing these very similar issues, just with the inflation, with the interest rates, with the cost of materials and labor. But again, the work and the end outcome is for our community, and so we at least want to understand the issue a little bit better. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you
for your work.
President.
Next up, we have Sarah Jane Stevens from National Church Residency, followed by Ms. Charlita Tavares with Primary One Health, and followed by Ms. Julianne Walker with Bronzeville Growers Market.
Council President Hardin and members of the Finance Committee, my name is Sarah Jane Steffes. I'm representing National Church Residences, and I want to first say thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony today. Headquartered here in Central Ohio, National Church Residences is the nation's largest nonprofit owner and developer of affordable senior housing. But we are also a nonprofit leader in integrating housing, healthcare, and supportive services, serving seniors of all income levels and their families. Each day, our approximately 1,500 Ohio employees serve 11,000 of Ohio seniors, 3,000 of which call Columbus home. In 2022, National Church Residences was awarded an ERA2 Stable Housing Initiative grant, which allowed us to partner with the City of Columbus to provide 1 year of rental and utility assistance to 360 eligible seniors. These provided much-needed financial support to residents who are facing hardships during the COVID-19 pandemic, allowing them to stay in their homes during this time of uncertainty. We'd like to extend our thanks to the City of Columbus for your support of our rental assistance program. Additional thanks and congratulations to the Department of Development on the work done to secure additional emergency rental assistance funding to continue to provide support for housing in need. National Church Residences is a member of the Affordable Housing Alliance of Central Ohio and the Human Services Chamber. And while we encourage the City of Columbus to continue the great work being done through the ERA Home and CARES grant programs, we would also recommend that the ARPA funds are used to increase the supply of affordable available homes in our region. We know local investment in housing can create significant impact on our community. For example, the City of Columbus's partnership with OPA through the Fact 50 program provided transformational funding to build affordable housing in the Franklinton neighborhood, which was quickly losing its stock of naturally affordable housing. As a result of this funding, National Church Residences and our peers built 160 apartments for seniors and families, preventing significant displacement in the neighborhood. Gates Junction was National Church Residences community that just recently opened in February. We filled 55 units in 3 months, indicating the significant demand. We also have a service coordinator on site at Gates Junction, and so our service coordinator has been able to connect our residents with the services available in the area, including so many amazing nonprofits in the Franklinton neighborhood. I have a quote from Michael, who is a resident of ours now at Gates Junction. He stated, "We needed somewhere I could afford that could accommodate my walker. I'm so glad to call this place home." The success of the Fact 50 program is a testament to the impact that additional intentional funding in housing can have on our community. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much for the work that you do. We really appreciate your partnership.
Thank you.
Have a great evening. Next up, we have former council member, Senator Charlita Tavares of Primary One Health, followed by Ms. Julianne Walker with Bronzeville Grows Market, followed by Ms. Becca Brown from Franklinton Farms. Welcome.
Hi there. How are you, Council President Hardin? And only Councilmember Remy left. I think we still have some people online. But first of all, I want to thank you all for providing the opportunity for all of us, particularly those of us from the Human Services Chamber, which I'm a proud member of, to provide testimony on the federal dollars and the impact those dollars have had and how we can invest the remaining dollars in the city of Columbus. Unfortunately, it took a pandemic to provide more than $500 million to local government to provide funding for health, housing, and human services and other agencies to serve the needs of our community residents and businesses. Fortunately, our members of Congress and the President saw that this investment was necessary to keep our economy, businesses, nonprofits, and most importantly, our healthcare systems alive and operating to keep our residents safe. Our board and staff believe that these remaining dollars should continue to support investments to address populations and assets in crisis, and with a focus more on people and programs, and that will require granularity. That's from the Recovery and Resiliency Report, page 11. These are one-time dollars that can help us to build new facilities and renovate our existing infrastructures to provide more services to meet the needs of our Columbus residents. Primary One Health is one of the safety net health organizations that provided more than 39,000 COVID-19 tests and over 16,000 COVID-19 vaccines. We provided primary care, behavioral health, vision, and dental care to more than 42,000 patients each year throughout the pandemic. While we are down from our high of 48,000 patients in 2019, we are slowly climbing out of the drop in patients and expanding to provide new service models. And I want to underscore that, new service models to reach underserved and marginalized communities. These are the communities that have seen disparities in mortality and morbidity exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. As I shared, Primary One Health is developing new partnerships and models of care to serve more patients, especially those that have financial, social, or cultural barriers to health care. To that end, we are expanding our services by partnering with Alvis Inc. on their newly expanded facility on Alum Creek. We were asked to join them in their new facility. Primary One Health was intended to be a tenant of the new facility. Unfortunately, with the COVID-19 pandemic, the construction costs increased tremendously along with supply chain issues, delays, and increases in material and labor costs. Alvis ran short, and we were asked to fund the construction and outfitting of our new portion of the building. We reached out to Franklin County, who provided $660,000. Later, we received federal funding and a grant from the Columbus Foundation. However, we are currently short approximately $490,000. I have an attachment. This site will serve the Maryhaven, Alvis, and community-based correctional facility clients and the residents of the Alum Creek and other neighborhoods. Our federally qualified health centers are facing another crisis in providing pharmacy services to our patients due to the pharmaceutical manufacturers and pharmacy benefit managers, the PBMs, attacks on our federal 340B prescription drug discount program authorized by Congress in 1992. These attacks are limiting the number of contract pharmacies like CVS, Kroger, Walgreens, Walmart, and independent pharmacies like Royal, which is in the Eastland area, and MVP, which is on Parsons Avenue, that can fill the prescriptions at a discount for our patients and generate revenue for Primary One Health. So this is the cost benefit. The revenue that federally qualified health centers generate must go to provide either additional services or to pay for uninsured residents. Primary One Health uses our revenue generated to pay for uninsured patients, over $4 million annually, and to provide services like dental and vision that are underwater. Our strategic plan is to continue to fight at the federal level in the courts and to work with Congress on legislation to fix the loophole in the law that allows the PBMs and manufacturers to bulldoze through and decimate the intent of the program. With that said, we would ask that Columbus City Council provide one-time funding. We've given you two options. One-time funding to support our in-house pharmacy delivery program with electric vehicles to reach our patients who do not have transportation to the pharmacy of their choice. Currently, we have 187 contract pharmacies to meet patients where they shop for food, clothing, and medications. By providing in-house pharmacies at 4 of our locations, we will provide some convenience to the patients being seen at those locations. However, it will provide a barrier to others. We are planning on a prescription delivery program for our patients with 6 electric vehicles and the medication delivery operations. As you know, we are members of the Human Services Chamber. For the last month, HSC has been compiling weekly reports from across the health and human services sector on rising community needs as the pandemic emergency ends. What is clear from those reports and our testimonies today is that we all need your continued support to serve our community in the months ahead. Thank you for your consideration and support of our services sectors.
Thank you, Ms. Tavares. This presentation is 100% why we're here today, because we know that the work is not done. We know that with the limited resources that we have available, that we're going to have to be very intentional about how we move forward. And so we look forward to following up. Again, this is the purpose of this hearing. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Julianne Walker with Bronzeville Growers Market, followed by Becca Brown with Franklinton Farms, followed by Austin Hill with The Refuge.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for this opportunity to share with you a few thoughts on food security and how these funds have been instrumental in maintaining, developing, and ensuring that more people get fed in a nutritious way. Let me share with you briefly that in 2018, motivated by what I saw as a need among food security on the Near East Side, I began the Bronzeville Growers Market. And within 2 years, there were a number of challenges, but when COVID hit, the summer of 2020, I thought perhaps we would not open the market because of the restrictions then imposed by the governor. However, people came to us and said, no, you will open the market, because it was not just about economics, it was about community. But we also said, how do we move it from community just back to economics in a broader way? And we recognize, for instance, that food security is a global issue. Under the United Nations, it's listed as one of the Sustainable Development Goals. Within the local community, it's listed as one of our social determinants of health. But we know in being able to address the social determinants of health, workforce is number one. So we said, how do we use the funds to improve workforce development? And so farm share was critical in this notion. And so we had an African-American woman, one of the few certified farmers in Central Ohio, certified organic, providing food to the community for people who didn't think a farmer's market was for them. But it was important for us to use that example and move beyond it when we recognized, for instance, that the schools did not provide any pathway on education, on agriculture. And that was because the Department of Education requires a minimum number of student enrollment in order to provide agriculture as a pathway. And so it was important then for us to find other funds and begin to develop our own course. And I've shared some information with you because I also wear the hat today of the Urban Farmers Coalition, the Community Growers Network, as well as the Franklin Park Civic Association, because within the Near East Side, we have over 22 community gardens, each of whom produces on an average of 500 pounds of produce. So we want to be able to connect learning through the Urban Farmers Coalition. We have a course now, we're in the third week of Teach the Grower, where we're moving people from passion to profits. We have a program under the Osteopathic Heritage Osteopathic Heritage Foundation, where we are growing growers, and we have a process where we are working with the schools to link with the Health Sciences Academy so that they know from an early age to consider agriculture as a career pathway. So we encourage you to see this, not as a grant. We encourage you to look at how we have developed this group of networks, this basket around food security, and see this as an investment. And when you think of STEM, think of STEAM with the A as agriculture. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Julia Lynn, for the work that you do. It's visible. Anybody who is on the Near East Side can see the impact that you're having in the community. So just thank you. Next, we have Becca Brown from Franklinton Farms, followed by Austin Hill with The Refuge, followed by Paula Pinn-Nasbrit, who's with Charles Madison Nabrit Memorial Garden.
Good evening. Thank you all so much for the opportunity to share tonight. My name is Rebecca Brown, and I'm the executive director at Franklinton Farms. Our organization started about 15 years ago as a traditional community garden space, operating in a city land bank property. And we since have grown into a highly productive urban farm and social enterprise, often because of strategic city investments in our people, our programs, and our infrastructure. Today, we employ 20 people, including 5 young adults who are participating in our urban farming apprenticeship program. We sell our fruits and vegetables year-round at full price to people who can afford it and at sliding scale prices for low-income families. We also host a free farm stand at the South Park apartment complex in South Franklinton. When the COVID crisis threw the regional food systems into disarray, Franklinton Farms was able to adapt and be nimble for the community needs. And we actually increased our overall outputs by 40%. We launched our garden education programs in earnest in the same year, and it was very intense. It was an intense year. We reached people of all ages, from pre-K kiddos to women in recovery, adult women in recovery, and seniors. But we couldn't meet the demand in just Franklinton alone. And at this critical moment in our work, we received support from ARPA funds through Parks and Rec. Thank you, Director. This allowed us to hire full-time rather than part-time education staff. The program continues to grow, and we're profoundly grateful for your support then and now as recipients of the Empowerment Grant. Thank you, directors, and Elevate 2.0. Again, thank you. So and awards from council members Emmanuel Remy, Nicholas Bankston, and Shayla Favor this year. Our education programs have served over 570 residents in Franklinton alone, in classrooms, homes, schools, social service partners such as Gladden, Homes for Families, and our community garden spaces. So I share all of that to demonstrate what is possible if we prioritize and invest strategically in our community gardens. You've had community gardens mentioned throughout the presentations tonight. This kind of impact can happen in neighborhoods all across our city. Franklinton Farms is convening a pilot program called the Community Growers Network. This is supported by the USDA and the Osteopathic Heritage Foundations. This is a collective movement of 7 urban farmers growing across the city in and for their low-income communities. These powerhouse leaders from each of the farms are working together to support one another and share resources. We're also training the next generation of urban farmers through ongoing and paid apprenticeships for youth. Together, we increase capacity across all of our farms and make Columbus more food secure for everybody. This work aligns with the Local Food Action Plan, and with the support of city and county staff and the local food board recently adopted recommendations to utilize further ARPA funds, to extend our Community Growers Network efforts through 2026 with strategic investments in the network. The proposed use of funds will advance localized aggregation food hub opportunities for our farms and expand the scope of the network significantly. This kind of strategy for our local food system can and will cultivate a more just city regarding not only food, but entrepreneurship, environmental stewardship, and nourishing communities. Thank you so much for your time. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Ms. Becca, for all the work that you're doing. We really appreciate the partnerships.
Absolutely, thanks.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Austin Hill, followed by Paula Penn-Nathbert, and our last speaker is Zarka Abid. Welcome.
Hello, how's it going? Good evening, President Hardin.
Good evening.
Remy. It's good to see you guys. My name's Austin Hill. I'm a director at The Refuge. We are a men's addiction recovery program that's based on the West Side. We've been around for 20 years, and just lightning fast, I promise, just in case anyone hasn't heard of us. We are, again, operated on the West Side. We provide high-quality clinical care in a safe and intentional recovery community. We also help the men with driver's license, social security cards, birth certificates, confirming health insurance status, free legal services, an 8-week financial literacy class, a 6-week career planning course, 9 months of workforce development training and work experience. Prior to completion, we confirm that all of the men have a signed lease, often with long-term recovery housing, safe and reliable transportation, a full-time job offer, and a strong and supportive community, and the tools to build and maintain healthy relationships. And not to be forgotten, all of this is provided completely free of charge. No one will ever be, they'll never receive a fee from us. In 2020, when the reality of the COVID pandemic started to set in, like many nonprofits, we simultaneously saw an increase in the demand for our services because the isolation we all experienced drove many individuals over the edge in their addiction. And almost immediately, a decrease in donations because, understandably, people were kind of freaked out, and so they didn't spend money. typically. They didn't give to places like us, like many of the places that you've heard from today. We're a nonprofit. We don't run on air or happy thoughts. That'd be nice if we did. We would all be a lot better off. To be frank, I spent way too many nights wondering if I was going to witness the demise of an organization that I truly care about. And even more terrifying was the thought of I didn't know where the men who we were serving were going to go if we were no longer there. And I had seen too many of them die, and I was tired of that. And then we heard about this CARES Act funding from the city. From the very beginning of the pandemic, the people who work within the city became an integral part of the refuge sustaining our services. The city became a provider of hope. We owe the individuals within the city a debt of gratitude, the refuge does. Because of the funding we received from the city, we went from having a budget with a deficit to a balanced budget. It helped fund the organizational needs we have to provide the high caliber of service that we want to provide and continue to provide for the men in the refuge. The CARES Act helped the refuge continue not miss a beat in our services in a time of great uncertainty. I know it saved lives. I have many friends who started their recovery journey in 2020, and I know that many of them would not be here if they did not do the hard work that they did within the refuge. I am grateful to each of you today for the funding that undoubtedly helped keep many of my friends alive. Thank you. Any questions?
I don't have a question, but I really was grateful to come out and visit and see the work that you're doing in person, to see the plans for expansion, to see the impact that you're having. This is what these dollars are for, knowing the impact that the pandemic has had on folks who have been struggling with addiction, and to have you there to provide this support is something that we're really grateful for.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
you.
Next, we'll have Paula Pinnapper. Welcome back to council, followed by Zerka Abid, and that will conclude our public speakers for this evening.
Thank you again for the opportunity. I wanted to start by inviting members of council to come and visit the Charles Madison Neighborhood Memorial Garden, and we are located in the rear of the Church of Christ of the Apostolic Faith at 1200 Brittenell Avenue. And I wanted to extend that invitation because our organization, like a lot of nonprofits, is really small and we have no paid staff. So we have never applied for any of these kinds of grants that are up now. We are planning to going forward, but because this is really wonderful. But I wanted to just highlight what some really small grassroots organizations are able to do, because we're not unique in this regard. And so we have been hosting a farmer's market on site where we're selling produce for $1 a pound. We have provided over 500 families with food for $1 a pound on a regular weekly basis. We also have an on-site summer day camp, STEM to STEAM, it's all in the garden. And we do that because we're partnered with the College of Engineering at Ohio State. So the kids are learning robotics, coding, there's a farm bot, there's a hydroponic system. And we also have partnered with Nationwide Children's Hospital because the Buckeye ISA program that Ohio State had through funding with Kellogg allowed us to have 13 families come through a program with us, and we incentivized those families. We paid them $700 per family, the money that we would have received in our nonprofit. We paid all of that out to families to incentivize them to participate in this program. And so in the summer day camp, we have plein air painting, we have laughter yoga, a gratitude circle, music and dance. And I really think, and we're partnering also with See Brilliance to really focus on an increased attention to STEM studies. So I would really encourage you to come out and visit. We will probably have the pizza oven fired up this Saturday from 10 till 1. So just thought I'd throw that out. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you so much. I'm actually looking forward to coming out and visiting. Heard more about the work that you're doing post last week's presentation. So really excited to see these robots too that are helping.
Yeah, it's cool. Thanks.
Thank you. Our final speaker to come before council is Zerka Abid with My Project USA. Welcome back to council, Zerka.
Good evening, President Hardin, Councilmember Ramey. Thank you so much for having us here. I have two young gentlemen with me, and they wanted to speak to, so I will split my time with them. My name is Zarqa Abid, and I am the founder and volunteer executive director of My Project USA, a nonprofit that I started from my kitchen 8 years ago when I learned about human trafficking gangs, trafficking minor Muslim girls from Columbus to Nashville, Tennessee, and Minnesota. We are now the largest Muslim social services in Ohio, headquartered in the Hilltop neighborhood on the west side of Columbus. We are a member of Human Services Chamber of Franklin County. Over the past 8 years in operation, My Project USA has served more than 230,000 clients, individuals, through our vast area of programs, provided more than 4.75 million meals and snacks, donated over $50,000 worth of household and clothing items such as coats and other basic supplies to families, and have accumulated over 80,000 hours of community service. A lot of this was not possible without the support of the City of Columbus and the funding provided through pandemic in CARES Act dollars and ARPA. Because of that funding that we received in past 3 years, we were able to survive first and then thrive later. We were able to expand our food pantry from 100 clients weekly to 600 plus families on weekly basis. We expanded our youth programming to more than 1,000 children. We were able to renovate the kitchen area in the Hilltop Youth Empowerment Center to a My Community Cafe, which is now able to serve children for a very long time. We are also able to hire, we were able to hire 5 Afghan refugees and provided them with job training, ESL, and driving support. Today, they are self-sufficient, and on top of everything else, we have been able to curbing the pipeline to gangs in the neighborhood by keeping children like Sharmarke Abdi and Mukambra right here with me away from the streets and on the fields. For you to know that funding enabled me to increase the capacity of my organization from $500,000 organization to almost $2.5 million organization at this point. On behalf of the board of My Project USA, staff and volunteers, and the youth and families we served in the Hilltop area, I would like to thank you for the support you have provided in the very important work we do. We also would like to request you to continue investing into people, programs, and infrastructure. There are about 10,000 children like Isa Jalani in Hilltop area at risk of gun and gang violence, and we ask you to please help us by investing in our operational expenses as well as on our one-time capacity construction expenses like the Isa Jalani Memorial Recreation Center that we are building on Sullivan Avenue. My Project USA is focused on the self-sufficiency. We currently have 3 social enterprises, and the Recreation Center will also serve as a social enterprise for the 50% capacity of the center. And we are confident that the ROI of this center will be great for the city and the community, just like all other initiatives of My Project USA.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
President Hardin and Council member, good afternoon. My name is Sharmarke Abdi, and I am 16 years old. I'm in the 10th grade, and I attempt a Bridgegate Community School. I live in Salt Park Apartments, and I work closely with the kids in Wedgewood Village Apartments. Where I come from, there is a lot of gun violence, and it's easy to get caught up doing the wrong thing. I wanted to live to see another day, and my chances of that are a lot greater because of the support of My Project USA and all it offers. 4 years ago, I found My Project USA. I was introduced to this organization by a great friend of mine named Isa and my old coach. Isa and my old coach wanted me to join My Project USA because of the importance in my community. My Project USA helped kids stay out of the streets. They offer after-school programs and soccer programs, a food pantry leadership program, and so much more. I participate in each of those programs, and it's saved my life. I decided to go to one of those soccer games. I participate in each of those programs, and it saved my life. I decided to go to one soccer game, and 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 before I knew it, I was falling in love with the sport. So I decided to play and join the team. It changed. It has changed my life forever, and I've been introduced to a lot of good people because of Isa. I decided to give it all a try, and I'm thankful for that. Sadly, Isa Jaylan is no longer with us today. On July on July 22, 2022, I lost my best friend like any ordinary day. We were outside playing soccer with everybody, and some gang members came in 6 cars and said they wanted to fight. We said no and tried to walk away. They trapped us. They trapped us and started shooting. We lost Isa. He was a good kid with a very bright future in store for him, and that was taken away from him due to a sadly act of gun violence. My project has made a difference in my life as a soccer player and a student now. I assist it.
I'm very sorry for that.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Every time I talk about my best friend, I just.
I'm very sorry for this. Shamarki was able to testify in front of the State House, and he was able to communicate and was willing to do it. It's very hard for all of us to talk about it, and this is why we have to have more spaces, indoor recreation spaces, and programming that we can save our children. Just last week, we have dealt with 5 gun violence issues right here in the Wedgwood area, and we are constantly working on these issues. And these children are at risk, and the programs that you are funding are totally helping us. So thank you so very much for your time tonight. If you have any questions, I can answer that.
Just praying for the community. And Jalen, thank you for coming down here. You're so sorry. So this brings an end to the public comment. I want to thank Congresswoman Beatty, my colleagues, the department directors, and members of the public for being here this evening. As I said at the beginning of this hearing, the City of Columbus received over $500 million in federal relief funds to date, and we've invested over 2/3 of these funds to mitigate the effects of the pandemic and speed the pace of recovery. There is roughly $70 million in ARPA funds left with an obligation deadline of December 2024, around $68 million in emergency rental assistance fund dedicated to housing, rental, and utility assistance, and just over $16 million in home ARP funds, which is focused on affordable housing, homelessness services, and homelessness prevention. I think in totality of all the testimonies we heard this evening, it is without saying that there is still so much work to do, more work than the dollars that we have left could support even. But just like we did through the pandemic, the city and its community partners, its stakeholders will continue to stack hands and do whatever we have to do to serve all of our residents in need. This is our path to recovery. And this is how we will show our resiliency. So thank you so much, and this concludes our hearing.